You're making per call what a lot of people make a week. For some people, they make that in a month. You're making that per sale.
Yeah, it converts to about 5,000 Aussie for a converted deal. It's definitely a good wicket.
Am I right in saying you're working part-time at the moment?
I'm working 10 to 15 in a week, yeah.
10 to 15 hours a week?
Yeah.
We hear a lot part-time, people wanting part-time, they wanting to do something on the side. We know that there's just a bucket load of offers out there that are similar to this.
I have the freedom to pick up the passport, jump to another country when I so please. I'm able to stay at home, chill out with my dog when I want to, be extra support for my partner who's studying medical degree right now.
What would you say have been the highlights for you transitioning across from brick and mortar to now working from home and closing and being paid up to $5,000 Aussie per sale? You came through the Remote Sales Institute, you're one of the star students, showing up every session, putting in the work, role playing, getting on calls with other students. Just take us back to before that, before you started. Were you even aware of this space? Was it something that was on your radar when you first, I guess, came into the closing space to get where you are now? Live from the Gold Coast, it's the Remote Sales Podcast. I'm Kris Cochrane, and today I am joined by a closer who's now living in the guts of Sydney, somewhere that I wanted to escape when I started high-ticket closing, but he decided to move there. He's crushing it. He used to be a supplement business owner, e-commerce, and he's now a closer. Welcome, Joel Fraser.
Hello, Kris. Good to be here, man.
So, mate, tell me about the move. So I know you're living on the northern beaches, Manly, you were living the dream, and now you've boxed yourself into Sydney. Whereabouts in Sydney are you living?
Yeah, man. So I'm right in Woolloomooloo, which is pretty much the thick of the city, but like just far out enough that you still got a little bit of nature around, you know, so.
Are you on the Finger Wharf? Tell me, are you in that development right on the wharf?
No, just a little bit in behind an area called the Domain. So I'm like 2-minute walk from the Domain, maybe 5 minutes from the Botanical Gardens, which was
pretty
refreshing.
Pretty nice.
For me. Yeah. Because coming from the northern beaches, man, you wake up every day and it's just palm trees, white sand. You know, it's a pretty hard sell to move into the city, but found myself a very nice lady that I was compelled to move for.
Well, that happens, doesn't it? Life plays out in different ways. Closing was my inspiration to get the hell out of Sydney, but it's also allowed you to move into Sydney for love. Mm-hmm. What better reason?
Yeah, I know, right? I've got two new ladies in my life. I've got my dentist lady, and then I've got this young lady as well.
There she is.
Yeah.
Is that a greyhound?
Greyhound. Absolutely thrilled to have a remote closer working under a roof. She's got a company 24/7.
There's another benefit we don't talk about enough, is the impact that being a remote closer and working from home has on our dogs, our pets.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for the whole family. You know,
something really important to consider. If you really want to look after your pets, then work from home.
It's not a bad pitch. Yeah.
And they sleep 18 hours a day, don't they? The greyhounds.
They do, man, and it's unbelievable. Like, this dog is so jacked. Like, you would think this dog is just running into the gym like 3 hours a day. It works for like 10 minutes, slow-paced walking, and it's just defined Arnold Schwarzenegger of dogs. Yeah, it's wild.
Tough life. I don't know how they do it. Well, mate, let's chat. Let's chat about what we're here to chat about, which is your journey into remote sales and where things are up to now. Just to provide a snapshot of what you're currently doing, what is the offer you're selling, what does that particular offer do for clients, if you could give some ballpark of an income, just to give people context of your current situation before we go to the start. What does it look like now?
Yeah, so look, man, I'll have to be a little bit reserved in some of what I say about the exact offer because I'm still actively working with that company. But I mean, in short, we sell a really cool product, which is basically digital products, digital business launches online for people that have a set of expertise in a given field. Right. And so basically I sit down, I have conversations with experts across every different industry that you could imagine, from like highly esteemed doctors to hyper successful real estate agents, fill in the blank. And I sort of just map out what their expertise are and how it could be translated into a digital business. Right. And so it's kind of like a strategy consultation, and that's how it's perceived and how it's felt throughout the conversation, but it's still a closing sales call, and so I find a good fit within these potential leads. I bring them on board, and then as a remote closer, I get paid 15% commission of that transaction. And then typically, I've worked out the math, it's about 3% of ongoing revenue from any partner that I bring on board, which is pretty wicked.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
You can't complain. Could you give us an idea of what is the ticket price typically on the way in?
Yeah, man. I mean, it ranges a heck of a lot for sure, but prices are in USD as well, which is something that I've really grown an affinity to, so
it's pretty juicy. It's like a drug. Getting paid, living in Australia where we have Australian pesos, which feel like pesos compared to USD, but then earning the USD. How good's that?
Yeah, exactly. And man, it's exactly the same, I suppose, dollar value for the domestic individual. Like $500 for the average Aussie punter is exactly the same as $500 for the American punter. So for them, it's the same exchange of dollars or value. But for us, you can just 1.5x your dollars then and there. It's beautiful. So the ticket prices are ranging on the low end from a $10,000 US offer, so about 15,000 Aussie, and they go up as high as 25 to 35,000 US. But averaged out, I think I'm sitting around roughly 18 to 20K US for the average ticket price that I'm closing on. So
wow. And then, do the math. You're listening to this, do the math, 15% of that, translate that back to Australian dollars, and you're making per call what a lot of people make a week. Sometimes, for some people, they make that in a month. You're making that per sale.
Yeah, so I'm terrible at my math, but I think roughly it converts to about 4.5 or 5,000 Aussie for a converted deal. Worth giving some pretext to that as well, that most often clients aren't able to put up $30,000 immediately, so they often are doing it in a split. So it's kind of like a trickle feed sometimes, maybe half and half, like first payment on execution of that agreement, right? And then the second half in like 30 days or 45 days. It's nice.
So it's more of a split. You're getting paid like most closers do. You're getting paid once the cash is collected by the business.
For sure. Yeah, exactly right. So often that'll be in halves, and sometimes it's quite nice as well, because I think the nature of remote sales for most roles is sometimes it will be ebbing and flowing, right? So you'll have very, very busy full calendars one month, and then some months it can be a bit static. There's a lot of variables that can play into that, but it's kind of nice in a way to have some decent coin come into the pocket then and there, but also know that you've got decent coin on the horizon, irrespective of whether or not you put in some hours, so that's worth noting. But overall, it's definitely a good wicket.
Am I right in saying you're working part-time at the moment? You're not working full-time hours?
No, man, with this one, I'm working 10 to 15 in a week. Yeah.
10 to 15 hours a week?
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people listening who are either in closing or in setting or looking to get into this space, we hear a lot part-time, people wanting part-time, they're wanting to transition into something part-time, they're wanting to do something on the side. And we know that there's just a bucket load of offers out there that are similar to this, where the lead flow isn't a full-time, doesn't sort of cater to a full-time salesperson, so you're able to work part-time. What hours are you working to get that 15 hours a week? Is it just sporadic? Is it when you open up your calendar? Is it a few days a week?
Yeah, exactly that, man. It's when you open up the calendar, it's total flexibility. But I think for me, it works really well because this offers services not only the US, but Australia, New Zealand, the UAE as well. So there are leads flowing through at different times and different time zones to coordinate with. I'm just an early riser. So for me, my naturally head off the pillow is like 4:30, 5 a.m. And so I can just smack a coffee or two, hit the computer with calendars open, and I'm just talking to Americans for, the first 2 or 3 hours of a day. And then I've got the rest of the day to focus on other projects, either my businesses or hanging out with my dog, all kinds of things in between.
The most important part, you're walking the dog and just, looking after the greyhound and making sure that she gets what she needs.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's just the nature of this particular offer as well, because it is categorically a pretty high ticket offer for what is common in the space, and I think often it is just that sliding metric. High ticket clientele often require a lot of due diligence. There's a lot of refinement in trying to find someone that can actually afford a $30,000 package. So that just naturally results in a lower lead flow. Whereas very often on a lower ticket offer, that can be a very full calendar where you might be looking to secure, I don't know, a couple $100 per deal, but you knock out 2 or 3 or 4 of those in a day, and all of a sudden it's a great wicket all the same, and
yeah, it's a bit of that balance between volume and commission. So higher, if you can get high volume and high commissions, it's the mecca, it's the holy grail.
Yeah.
Take us back to when you started, because I miss your face, mate. We haven't seen each other for a long time. You came through the Remote Sales Institute. You're one of the star students, showing up every session, putting in the work, showing up to every sparring session, role playing, getting on calls with other students. You really worked hard there for a while, but we haven't seen each other now for months. It feels like it's been a long time, so it's awesome to see you. But just take us back to before that, before you started. Were you even aware of this space? Was it something that was on your radar when you first, I guess, came into the closing space to get where you are now?
Yeah, but I mean, by the time I came into the closing space, for sure it was on my radar, but was absolutely not for, I guess, the 12, 13 years of sales that I was doing before that. So I guess I would start it when I was 19. I got a job at a supplement store called GNC Livewell. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're the biggest franchise on the planet for basically selling health foods, vitamins, sports nutrition. And I got into that role. I felt super out of my depth, because 19-year-old kid, I'm primarily working with my colleagues being nutritionists and naturopaths and dietitians, like people that have gone to uni for 6, 7, 8 years, so I very much felt out of my depth, but I loved it. I loved the process, and I got really good at it. And within 12 months, I was actually managing the 2 flagship stores, and I was managing the nutritionists and the naturopaths who were like 30 and 40-year-olds. And that seemed to be crazy, but I loved it, and I loved the sales process so much that I ended up departing that role to start my own business and start my own stores and built and grew that business for preceding 11 years. And I loved it, and it was a massive success. When I ultimately was acquired by a very large competitor in that space, but just the nature of, 1, running your own business, and 2, running a business that's dependent on opening hours and locations. I was tunnel vision to that. I did not even see the world beyond it. So I was it was a ball and chain just to be glued to my store that was open 7 days a week from 9 till 6. Employees need to be managed. Everything is coordinated by time and location. So I had no real concept of this. It didn't even seem like a reality for me to consider. But it wasn't until I sold that business that all of a sudden I was sat with a lot of, I suppose, financial freedom and time freedom. And then I just became adamant. It was a promise to myself that whatever I engage in moving forward, especially for income, I'm not going to do so with that ball and chain. I'm not going to be tethered to a location or time. And so that's what really started opening my eyes to this. And I had a few friends that were working in remote sales, and I could see they were doing really well, and they had a lifestyle that was, just freeing. Honestly, it's just freedom. Like, that looks cool. That looks very, very fun. And so that opened my eyes to it. I actually had a couple of conversations with one of my mates within his field, and his business was in remote selling solar systems and panels to properties around Australia. And he gave me the invitation to have a crack at that and join the team and see if I could, I guess, apply all the sales skills that I've been building in the real world, face to face with real humans, on a sales floor, into, I suppose, a dynamic where I don't know a freaking thing about solar systems. I don't know. I have not done a whole lot of sales by phone where there's no face to face. It's literally just voice for an hour and then transacting deals of $6,000, $7,000, $10,000, where I'm used to selling a tub of protein, a couple vitamins for $120. So I was sort of, I felt uncomfortable with it. It seemed somewhat scary, and I liked that. I liked the idea of a challenge and seeing what can be applied, from what I had been doing in such a completely different field. And so jumped into it, had quite a lot of success pretty quickly as well. And Worked a little bit on like setting or triaging, but I was mostly setting and triaging for myself, and then very quickly just went straight into the closing side of things. So other people would just set for me in my calendar, and I went with that for better part of a year, or close to a year, a little bit under, right? And it was cool, man.
This was selling solar system, closing solar. Yep. So B2C, you had appointments set for you, and you were closing solar remotely.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. And just by phone. So it was never like a Zoom or a Google Meet or anything like that. Just phone conversations, which for me was daunting because I was like, I felt like most of my ability to sell in the way that I had been selling for a decade was because I can use my body, I can use my gestures, I can sort of connect with a human a little bit more. So I was like, this is going to be a challenge to try and do that just verbally, through a phone line, especially selling solar. That's a rough industry in some ways.
Big time, because you're selling something that's a bit of a commodity, and people are comparing it often.
Yeah, man.
They? So you're selling that product. People
saturated.
Comparison, it's saturated. People are doing deals, which it makes it really difficult, to differentiate and provide value if the guy down the road's going to do it for cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. But I think the biggest takeaway from it is you really need to lean into real authentic conversations. And you can do that just through a phone call. Just as much, well, maybe not just as much, but almost as much as what you could do, face to face, meeting someone in the real world. So being able to level.
I have to say that I had the same experience. It was very similar to you, fitness industry, personal training. It sold had taken hundreds, potentially thousands of one-on-one personal training consults. I was selling for myself and then selling for all of my trainers and build a team of trainers. And then going from that environment of selling in person, using rapport and body language and just building a strong connection because you're in person, to then being on the phone. My first closing gig was similar to you. It was on the phone, selling $8,000, $6,000 to $8,000 products or service. It was a info product coaching course. It was difficult. It was a bit of a transition across not being able to rely on that connection.
Yeah, exactly. But you can still bring a human approach to it. I think that was probably the biggest thing that I had to learn to overcome as well, because at very first you get thrown into this and you're like, here's your script, here's the company policies, here's the company processes, right? And it's just like, you start to lean on the script to begin with, and you're like, this sounds slightly robotic. It's taking away from the human connection. It's an important part of the process to understand what needs to be covered within a conversation. But I think my ability to break through that relatively quickly was to be able to revert this back to a real human conversation, like you're talking to a mate almost, albeit you're meeting for the first time.
Well, that's the hard part, isn't it? That's the skill, is going from strangers or cold to sold, stranger right through to being someone who the prospect knows, likes and trusts enough to then part ways with large sums of money. Mm-hmm. That's a real skill. Talk us through how. So then, moving from being you were remote closing physical products to then wanting to remote close in a different space, selling intangible courses, intangible outcomes. I think that what we do in the high ticket space, again, selling solar is it's technically high ticket. The difference is you're selling something very tangible, something that someone else can price match or discount on, and then people are price matching. It's very difficult to build value. And when you're selling intangible things like an agency service like you're doing now, or a program, an info product where you're selling a result and an outcome, so much easier to build value and so much harder for someone to come and price cut the knees off your offer and discount to still get the same result. So I think that's where the big difference is. But what led you to coming to RSI, and then what was the appeal of moving out of solar and into this type of space particularly?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. I mean, when it comes to solar and then finding RSI, I enjoyed the challenge. I enjoyed how uncomfortable I felt first getting into yet another industry and trying to learn what the hell a solar system is, how it works, what are the brands, right? I enjoyed that process, and it was kind of proof of concept for me as well. Like, this is actually real. You can actually just work from your laptop wherever you want to and have an awesome income while you do it, But as much as I tried, I just couldn't get myself excited for solar systems. Like, it's a useful product. There's a lot of good that comes from it. Customers are usually happy. They get a good outcome, but I just couldn't get excited for it. And so having at least dipped my toes into the water of remote selling, I now understood that, or at least validated that this is a real thing. And I was much more aware, because I was now practicing it, of what else is out there and how there are really cool offers that you can get really excited by for many different reasons, whether it's just because it's something that you've already had experience in, it's something that you're aligned to, or maybe it's something that you would be a consumer of yourself. You're like, oh shit, I would want to buy that. So why not try and find an opportunity where you could then sell that? And that becomes a really cool offer to work on. And so I was just curious, like, how the hell do I find the right offer? And what's that offer going to require from me? What new skill sets am I going to need to adopt? Because I realize every offer is going to have a different sort of process and a protocol, whether it's phone or whether it's a Zoom, right? And then yours and Shani's material started popping up in front of me, along with a lot of other people's material as well. But the fact of the matter was, you guys had far more proof in the pudding. Like, you had a lot more proof in your work, a lot more authority, in my opinion, to be teaching what you were teaching. There was a lot of charlatans out there that were, frankly, had no business teaching this because they had no proof or no backing in doing it.
Mate, you could probably teach them a thing or two, a lot of the people who are out there teaching.
It kind of felt like that. But it did not feel like that with yourselves. And frankly, you guys back yourself as well. There's a lot that you guys do to ensure client success. And I could just see that, the countless people that were talking about it, So I was like, screw it, let's have a crack here and see what knowledge can be onboarded, because I've constantly, as I've taken my sales skills into a new field or an industry, I've been humbled that, yeah, you're okay. You're not as good as you thought you were. And there's a lot that can be sharpened within your toolkit. I was like, well, this seems to be the best opportunity to sharpen those tools, and also potential opportunity to be connected with other cool offers that I'm not even sure how to really initiate. So that's what led me to RSI.
Awesome. I know in a couple of minutes you've got to bounce, but what would you say have been the highlights for you transitioning across from brick and mortar, $100 containers of protein, to now working from home and closing and being paid up to $5,000 Aussie per sale? What do you feel have been the biggest achievements, biggest wins for you? How's life changed, and for the positive, for the better?
In terms of how life has changed, it is the total inverse of being locked down to a location, feeling like I have to work, I have to do my job to get the bills paid, and I have to be at this place to get that done, and I have to be there at this time to get that done. And now all of that has just been wiped off of the table. So now I have the freedom to pick up the passport, jump to another country when I so please, and I'm able to stay at home, chill out with my dog when I want to, be extra support for my partner who's studying medical degree right now, which is a very difficult thing. So she's very much glued into an hour at this point in time, but that would be the biggest change in lifestyle, for sure. And I think the biggest problem that's coming from that is, or what was the biggest problem at first, was finding other people, other friends that lived a somewhat similar lifestyle. Because it's like all well and good to have all of this free time and all of this freedom, but I was kind of just doing it solo, and then it was once my network started to grow and I started to meet cool people doing cool things, whether it be in remote sales or their version of remote income, was where I was able to start enjoying this even furthermore. I have a friend that calls up and says, hey, do you want to bounce to this country? We're going to go shoot X, Y, and Z videos. I'm like, shit, when are we leaving? And just booked a flight within 24 hours and we're out. It's a pretty cool life that I didn't imagine was really possible prior to selling that business. That's where I started to understand that this is possible, and then enjoying that with other people has been the biggest change. Yeah,
we've got a similar journey, and I wish I was in a similar position where I'd sold the business and the business didn't just blow up in my face and then I was totally broke, needing a role. So you, I'd say we've got a similar background, but you certainly have the upper hand on that one. So it's a nice position to be in. But dude, I want to congratulate you on the success so far and what you've achieved with your lifestyle, being able to transition from, brick and mortar business owner, having that successful exit, but then really applying your skills into something completely different, completely new, and entrenching yourself in this space and finding an offer that is a really top class offer. You're earning great cash. It allows you to afford you the flexibility to live life on your terms. And man, it's a huge achievement. So congrats.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the work that you're doing there, because obviously you cover a lot, but I would think my biggest takeaway from working with you and the team is just how uncomfortable you can get everyone for the greater good. You know, you put people into the thick of it. You don't just throw us and all the students just generic material and some scripting. It's like, no, we're going to go spa today. We're going to ask some difficult questions. It's just uncomfortable.
So funny.
Which I
so
think
funny.
is the most important part to get good, you know, and that's what really drew me to it in the first place, man. I was like, I need to get uncomfortable to push a new boundary. Yeah, and that's what I was finding from RSA. Yeah.
I really appreciate that, and it means a lot coming from someone who's so competent, who has a background in business ownership, thoroughbred salesperson, years and years and years of sales, and also who was closing in a remote closing role, to then come into an environment and still feel like you're stretched, still feel like you're out of your comfort zone. So that means a lot.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that coupled with real opportunity. Yeah, that's a very real reality of RSI, is that there is opportunity on the side of that too. You know, so I think it's a very cool thing. Appreciate you.
Legend. You too, man. Appreciate you, and thanks a lot for your time, bud. I know you've got a lot on there. It looks like you're really busy today with the dog, and there's probably a lot on the plate. So in the calendar with your 15-hour work week. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man.
The busy
Girl's
schedule.
Working overtime today, so yeah, I'll let her keep doing her role, and I've got to jump into a closing appointment actually. So yeah.
Cool, dude. Well, hope you close it, make some cash, and I'll see you soon, man. It's great to connect.
Appreciate it, man. Good talking.
Awesome. Bye, Joel.
Cheers.
And if you got some value today and you'd love to know more about remote sales, don't forget to hit subscribe, rate the podcast on Spotify, and if you want to know some more information about how to get into this space, go to remotesalesinstitute.com. We'll see you soon.